Oh, we are so back. Well, a while ago, YCS Indianapolis concluded to a general sentiment that this format sucks. Snake Eyes dominates, and unifying the format is a bunch of decks that, where if it's not Snake Eyes, has to absolutely FTK you.
Here, hold this.
Or just OTK you in some pretty uninteractive gameplay. But as always, despite this doom and gloom, there's a reason why the best players in the game are still consistently at the top of these tournaments. And the same is true here at Indianapolis, where the best of the best have pushed through 1,800 players into Top Cut. So let's zoom in on the top 4 feature match between Cameron Neal, the winner of the previous YCS in Raleigh, and one of the greatest of all time, perhaps the greatest South American player of all time, Paulo, PRRJ, Goncalves.
pronouncenames.com.
Goncalves.
Goncalves. Paulo has been competing and dominating his continent since 2007, the only player in Yu-Gi-Oh history to complete a premier event three-peat. And then 5 years later, he is fighting for another YCS title. And many could look at this match and say it's extremely anticlimactic. Games 1 and 2 are very simple and paint the full picture of what this format is like. A non-stop hand trap war where if one person resolves their combo, they win. And big surprise, that's exactly what happens here. However, Game 3 is able to provide a different perspective to the hand trap war, to show the skill in the simplified game state where we fight with sticks and stones. Cameron's opener is a Snake Eye Ash, 2 copies of Ash Blossom, an Infinite Impermanence, and an Effect Veiler. Paulo's opener is the 2 one-ofs in his deck, Divine Temple of the Snake Eye and Original Sinful Spoils, Snake Eye, followed up with Snake Eye's Poplar, Ash Blossom, and Infinite Impermanence. Comparing hands here, Cameron does have Snake Eye Ash, which is probably, at the time, the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it does falter to a single Infinite Impermanence from Paulo. However, Paulo's opening 5 is also just extremely awkward. He opened both Snake Eye one-ofs in his deck, with Temple and Original Sinful Spoils, so Paulo leads off on his turn. He gets stopped by an Ash Blossom on Original Sinful Spoils and an Infinite Impermanence on Hida, which just causes him to simply pass turn. The problem here for Cameron is that he is already exhausted of Engine. The Snake Eye Ash did not generate a follow-up play. He must top deck into live Engine, and he rips a Crossout Designator. Cameron is going to have to cook a fine meal out of thin air. So this is our situation to analyze. Sticks and Stone Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of my favorite things to actually analyze, because you might be able to truly boil down the correct line of play. It's also easy to talk to you guys about because there are very little decisions, but every decision makes a massive impact. So Cameron starts his turn by thinking for a good 20 seconds before he normal summons an Effect Veiler and just slaps on the Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis. I think I got that right on the first try. And this is his only viable play. However, he could decide to normal summon Ash Blossom. Obviously, that's what he spent this 20 seconds thinking about. And I'm not going to break down the tiniest of percentage points here, but I'll trust that keeping Ash Blossom here was correct. Typhon uses its effect to bounce back Hida into the extra deck. Then, he decides to go to the battle phase to attack over Snake Eye's Poplar. This does allow its graveyard effect to place back the Snake Eye's Diabell Star. And then Cameron sets a new unknown card and passes. Afterwards, during the next turn, Paulo leads with activating the graveyard effect of Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. This card can add any impactful fire level 1 from his deck to the hand, particularly Snake Eye Ash, with the option to use Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. However, Cameron decides not to use it. Paulo, not afraid of any potential unknowns in the hand of Cameron Neal, proceeds to make Hida, the Fire Charmer, take his Snake Eye Ash, use its effect, and just OTK him. Cameron could have survived the turn by using Ash Blossom on original Sinful Spoils and Crossout Designator on Snake Eye's Diabell Star. Hey, and maybe he could top deck a potential out? A Snake Eye Ash here could be game-changing. Why? On the Sunday after this happened, I sat in the Airbnb with my friends, arguing for ages. Cameron Neal is not just a player who makes a silly mistake, right? Maybe the play was suboptimal, but I think there's another dimension and reasoning to why Cameron Neal did not use Ash Blossom. For one, I am not going to assume that using Ash Blossom here is actually the correct play, but more so to realize there's a different side to Yu-Gi-Oh! And way you can think about the game. So, in Cameron's situation, he is so far behind in the game that playing Standard is just a losing play. He has to try and conserve resources and hope his opponent tries to play it safe. Even the best top deck in his main deck, a Snake Eye Ash, won't even save him versus Paulo's double Imperm and an Ash Blossom. Cameron decides to keep the cards he has unknown to Paulo. Cameron decides to keep the cards he has unknown to Paulo. In Paulo's vision, the cards in Cam's hand can't possibly be Engine. They have to be certain hand interactions. By not using Ash Blossom or Effect Veiler at various choke points, theoretically, Paulo's process of elimination should typically start to work. If it can't be those hand interactions, it has to be something else. And Cameron might have a prime opportunity to bluff Nibiru the Primal Being. And if Paulo wants to play around Nibiru, after he uses Snake Eye Ash, he can search a follow-up play instead and simply make SP Little Knight, banishing away Cameron's Typhon. Paulo could play it safe. He has 2 Imperms and an Ash Blossom versus no Engine on the side of Cameron Neal. Cameron is hoping he could bluff his way out to drag out the game. The thing is that in this situation, Cameron's bluff doesn't really make the most sense. Because as long as Typhon is on the field, he can't actually use Nibiru the Primal Being. So from Paulo's perspective, if Cameron has this Nibiru in his hand, he probably wouldn't be making this play. Postscript note, this is not necessarily true. In this situation, Cameron is sort of forced to make Typhon. You could kind of take it either way. Anyways, back to the video. Also, there is a second very big problem.
Another thing that I noticed is that he was thinking about what to do in the previous turn. And then I didn't know what he was thinking about, and then his normal summons Effect Veiler. That pretty much tells me he has another hand trap, and he was thinking which one he wants to normal summon. So that means that the card in his hand is probably not an Effect Veiler, because otherwise he wouldn't need to think about it, unless he had like 2 Effect Veilers plus another hand trap, and that is the one that he's thinking about normal summoning. Pretty much that tells me that the card in hand is a hand trap, and a hand trap that he needs to think about. And in that case, it's really clear that it's Ash Blossom, because if it was a Mourner, he would have normal summoned the Mourner, right? So pretty much I need to play around the card in hand being a hand trap that he thought about normal summoning and didn't. And that's pretty much Ash Blossom.
Just the sole fact that Cameron thought about his normal summon likely means that there was a second option in the hand for him. Nibiru, the Primal Being, is a card that cannot be normal summoned. Therefore, he needs something else. Obviously, you could try to Levolution this and think for 20 seconds while only have one viable play, but Paulo decides to gauge his opponent in that way. That is what it takes to be the best. And hey, at the end of the day, maybe Cam did actually make a mistake and forget he could use Ash Blossom. But this kind of advanced bluff, where he could try to get his opponent to play in a very particular way, is a very insightful thing about card games in general. In Yu-Gi-Oh, sometimes you can't play the cards you're dealt. You're probably not going to win tournaments that way, because you have to get lucky to some degree, but eventually you will get unlucky, and then how are you going to play through that? If you get handed a 2 of clubs and a 6 of hearts in a game of poker, you can't necessarily fold every single time. There is always a chance to bluff the nuts. It's just unfortunate he wasn't playing against a player like me, and instead, the best South American player of all time.
Goncalves.
Paulo Goncalves would go on to defeat 6-time YCS champion Chris LeBlanc in the finals. He would become a 4-time Premier Event champion in the process. Thanks for watching.